let's get into the first question, which is the International Monetary Fund is scared to death of crypto. So the IMF just made a blog post that was authored by Tobias Adrian and a couple other folks at the IMF, and they argued for global crypto laws, comprehensive crypto laws. They already have issues with how El Salvador has been, doing their legal tender into Bitcoin. They're very angry about that because they need El Salvador to remain a slave to the dollar. They especially targeted remittances and had fears of crypto replacing domestic currency. Oh no, how terrible. So let's throw it to the guests. Let's start with Mike. Is this a response to the bullish committee meeting that happened this week in the US?
It's interesting because here in Australia, actually on Wednesday this week, Josh Frydenberg, he's our national treasurer. Crypto is actually going to fall under the digital payments protection services as of January. So people in Australia that can actually buy crypto are going to be protected under Australian laws come January. And also now Australia's largest bank, the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, you can actually buy crypto through your app, through their partner with Gemini. So it's interesting to see what the IMF is saying and then compared to in Australia, what's really happening down here where our government's putting protection plans in for our citizens to be protected buying crypto so they don't get ripped off. So it's interesting times.
Gotcha. So, Rice, what is the role? Can you just describe to the people what the IMF does and don't just say they're like the Legion of Doom? Can you actually describe what the IMF does?
I mean, in a way, I would kind of describe the IMF as being the central banks of the central banks. And a lot of people may disagree with that, but it's the International Monetary Fund. They seem to monitor everything. They created the very first digital currency back in 1969, something called the SDR, which is the special drawing rights, in case people are unaware of that history lesson. They pretty much are a big influence on what takes place worldwide when it comes to economics and fiat currencies, I should say, not money, because there is a difference between currency and money. But when it comes to this whole idea, this entire article about the IMF basically being terrified, looking at cryptocurrencies as being a threat, this is exactly why cryptocurrencies was created in the first place, for one. It started back in the early 80s with David Chaum, who is considered the godfather of cryptography. And then we had the cypherpunk movement. David Chaum created the first digital currency beyond the SDR that was called DigiCash back in mid-90s. So there's been a lot of development going towards this for encryption and privacy, and to take us away from the fiat system, which is controlled by government and central banks. In the United States, that would be our Federal Reserve. You can see since the Federal Reserve has gotten into power, we've had a complete decline on the dollar. The dollar has lost almost all of its purchasing power it's had since 1913. And it's been a complete decline. If you go onto the Fred website and look at the chart that I'm talking about, you'll see exactly the decline that we've been constantly in, where when Bitcoin was created, it was created in 2008. And it was created right outside of the crash that we had in 2008 that basically ended the system. The system was kept on life support by quantitative easing. We've seen Hillary Clinton just come out recently talking about Bitcoin being a threat by undermining currencies and decentralized cryptocurrencies, undermining currencies, undermining the role of the US dollar as a world reserve currency, and destabilizing nations. This is exactly why I got involved in cryptocurrency. So for the IMF to be pushing for these regulatory issues, I mean, this has been something ongoing. Christine Lagarde, who was in charge of the IMF, she put out a digital paper a couple years ago called Winds of Change that people can check out. There has been a push for going in a digital direction. That's why when you look at the crypto conspiracies, people say that this was created by the NSA. There was a white paper created by the NSA back in the 90s. Who is Satoshi? But ultimately, we have decentralized technology. It's open source. You don't have to trust it. You can verify it. We can't do that with the governments. So, of course, decentralized cryptocurrencies, especially Bitcoin, are going to be a threat to the US dollar and fiat currencies and the legacy system. That's why we say be your own bank.
Yep.
I was trying
100%.
to end the rant, so I wasn't overtaking too much time there.
It's okay. It's okay. I almost had to use the timer button, but I didn't because you're wrapping it up and you're a professional.
Thank you.
We're all professionals here. By the way, just my 2 cents. I think Satoshi is David Schwartz. So let's go to
Why is he in
Stash.
Antarctica, by the way?
David Schwartz?
Yeah, him and Garlinghouse are in Antarctica.
Hey, I mean, probably setting up a lightning node or something ridiculous. Or doing, the old remittances. Actually, that makes a ton of sense because it's really hard to send money to those scientists in Antarctica. So they're probably doing some sort of Ripple remittance thing there.
Totally.
Anyways,
That's all it is. Yeah, that's all it is.
That's it. That's it. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine.
Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Stash.
Klaus Schwab may not be there. Christine
Yeah.
Lagarde may not be there. I don't know.
Stash, why does the IMF oppose crypto instead of adopting a CBDC? Why don't they just welcome it with open arms? Because it's programmable money and they get more control. Why do they oppose it?
Well, the thing is, I don't know that they would have more control there. And I think that, right now, just like any other major power here globally, they want to keep it status quo, right? Why try and mix things up and put in an X factor that you are probably not very comfortable on, you're not very well versed on, right? You don't know the intricacies of it. I'm sure they have people that are researching, but not to the level that they really need to be able to adopt something like that. And you have your own system. You have your own system there, and why would you want to replace that with some other system that is not your system that you do not have full control over? And I think that's the biggest thing, is it comes down to control. There's that need to want to keep that power and keep it centralized. And like Rice said, they're kind of a central bank of central banks, with this SDR that they've created, and they see themselves, I think, as a bit of a linchpin in the global economy. They don't want to be replaced by another linchpin that is like a decentralized autonomous organization. I would love to see a DAO replace something like the IMF. I think that would be a great use case for that kind of actual technology we have here. But I think, in general, I mean, that's the reason why it all comes down to power and control. Right now they have that control over what's going to happen globally with some of these major relationships between countries. Because you look at right now with these SDRs, like what Rice was saying, these special drawing rights, they're comprised of only, I think it's 6 different currencies, right? It's like the pound, the US dollar, the yuan, the yen, and I might be missing one or so.
So it's a basket of fiat currencies that make up.
Yeah, they're all fiat currencies. That's what I'm saying. So but look at this. The fact of the matter is that they can control who and what currencies are in those baskets, right? They have that control, and that has a really big impact globally. So I think it's kind of comical that they come here and they say that they want regulations globally for this. I mean, it's so incredibly hard to do that because we don't have a global economy, and every economy has a little bit of a different, take on crypto. They have a different stance on it, and they're in a different.
They're funding nations too, and you got to look at what's going on with El Salvador, the IMF, and Bitcoin.
Right.
That's all I'll say on that.
Yeah, it's all interconnected.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. So they see what El Salvador is doing as subventing their controls and their rules on things, and so that's something that they definitely don't like, and they don't want other countries starting to do the same thing and getting on board and saying, hey, this is actually not too bad, because then they have no control over those types of things. So and then think about what happens when we get multiple countries that are doing this, and then they get together and create their own SDR type of thing, and they make it a cryptocurrency that is governed by a DAO. I mean, that thing, then it'll just be crazy, man, and then they're just gonna go after people just like pew pew pew, and that's it. Right. IMF all over your ass. So
let me flip it to Joe Paris real quick. Let me flip it to Joe Paris. Joe, what could be the IMF's next steps if they want to combat crypto?
Well, I think that you mentioned the CBDC, right? I think that's like their first step into potentially mimicking crypto, right? It's going to be something very similar, but something that they can control, right? And, one of the reasons why they're really scared of crypto is because our fake internet money is better than their made up fake money. You know what I mean? And there's more awareness coming to crypto more than ever before. We have NFL superstars and other superstars, for the first time taking their paychecks in crypto. We have more mainstream adoption than ever before with all of this. And, the truth is that it's coming, right? I think we all know that crypto is here. It's not going anywhere. And, the IMF and, they're scared for a good reason, right? And when El Salvador, makes the decision to accept it as their legal currency, I mean, that's a huge major step, right? And, to keep things short and sweet, I think Rice and Stash did an amazing job answering this question, to be honest. Great history lesson. So, great job, guys. But yeah, that's kind of my take on this, just to keep it short and sweet.
Got it. Well, the only thing that we like that are short and sweet are red candles. So, yeah, we definitely want you to get in there and chop it up, Joe and Mike. Don't let Rice and Stash bully you around
feel
just
free to jump
because
in.
because they got cool mustaches and cool haircuts. You guys, one of you is from Australia, and one of you is from Puerto Rico. Get in there,
Well,
let's see.
with
Go,
the
Mike.
CBDC, so in Australia and New Zealand, if you're aware or not, we were the first two countries. Well, New Zealand was the first country in the world to test FPOS. And it's one of those things, because we're a small, well, we're not New Zealand, but because New Zealand's small, if something goes wrong, they can sweep it under the carpet. I think with Australia launching this CBDC next year, it's going to be a bit of a test because they can test it out, see how it goes with smaller economies before they roll it out. So I think Australia and New Zealand getting involved in this early next year is going to be the stepping stone for the IMF to really get involved, and we're the guinea pigs for them.
So, I'm not, to be honest, I'm not familiar with the technicals of the Australian CBDC. Is that going to be attached to your passport number, your driver's license number? What's the wallet for that?
It's going to be attached to China. Sorry.
Yeah, it was all launched this week as a new, as a part of this payment protection policy. So it was just launched Wednesday. I haven't really read the documents, but yeah, come January, they're looking at implementing the CBDC and the payments protection policies for Australians. So it'll be interesting in the new year what happens with it.
Yeah. Okay. So Bit Squad, there's some alpha right there. If this just came out Wednesday, we've been really following what's going on here in the States. But look and see who's backing that. I bet you it's Ripple because they already have such a deep network in the APAC region, and Australia is part of APAC. It's Oceania, so I would not be surprised if it's backed by Ripple, which would be very bullish for Ripple. Let's move on to